right. Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us today for the new and updated Fall 2017 World Rugby Law Trials discussion. Appreciate your time tonight. Try not to take too much of it. My name is Kurt Weaver. I'm a national panel referee here for USA Rugby. Also work with the youth and high school game and the referee organization. So I'll be walking you through the laws today. Please know that we're going to get through some of these laws with some clips and some information there. And this will likely not get all of your questions answered. So I would like to make sure that you understand in the webinar process here, there's a little area where you can type in questions. And so the type in question area is the best place for you to be able to get your questions answered. So go ahead and type your questions in there, and we'll try to address them as we go along, because I know it's going to be lots of questions everyone will have. But I want to try to address as many of those as possible. Before we get started as well, can we make sure that you understand that there is the handouts? And so there's actually two handouts on this document right here. And so the handouts right there are the new game management guidelines and also a PDF of this presentation. So I want to make sure that you see where those are in the handout section on your webinar software there. There's two handouts, the game management guidelines and the PowerPoint that we're giving right now is actually in a PDF format right there. Additionally, this will be recorded and archived, so everybody will be able to listen to this as many times as possible. We will make sure that it is in several different places, as well as social media shared out for the recording and all the resources that go with it. But I'll then show you real briefly and quickly where you can find the resources right now to follow along, because I know sometimes, unfortunately, the webinar does not show video that great. So this website down here at the bottom, usarugby.org/referee resources /referee-resources. That website is where you can find, and I'll show you right now, where you can find, sorry, too many pages open here. Referee resources right here. So you can find the very first entry here under, you're in the referee page on the resources tab, laws and guidelines. If you click on that right now, this will take you to the Dropbox, and in this Dropbox is this presentation we're giving in both PDF and PowerPoint, as well as all the video clips we're going to watch today. So in case the video for you is a little choppy or you can't see it clearly, it's labeled as the slide we're on and what the law is with it. So there should be now 3, 4, or 5 different ways for you to access the information, and I'm hoping that takes care of any problems we have with technology or slow computer or whatever else. So without further ado, we can dive right into this thing. So right again, resources, and then the first one, law trials starting August 1, 2017. We'll dive right in. All right, so what are we talking about, when, and why? The new law trials implemented by World Rugby, and we're actually going through 2 different sets of law trials today. We've mixed them together for ease of implementation in this presentation, but there's actually 2 different sets. One of them was implemented in the Northern Hemisphere actually in January 1, but USA Rugby's administration and committees actually decided, since we were mid-season, let's not implement those until August 1. And so we're implementing now both sets on August 1. We'll be going through all of those today. A small little change just to think about for those of you playing sevens. The sevens will not adopt any of the stuff in this presentation until after the national championships. So August 14th is when sevens will adopt this. But for the rest of the country, all the preseason 15s, the mountain leagues that are happening in Colorado, some of the summer fun stuff, anything after August 1st will be the new laws for 15s, 10s, and then non-national sevens. I've also been asked a lot of times why these things are changing. I don't have a great answer as to why. I think there's plenty of committees out there and folks looking at these things. I know I hear a lot that a certain law needs to change or we need to update things. I've now refereed 2 World Rugby tournaments using these laws, and so I can kind of attest to the use of them. It's been great so far. I think the scrums have been great, and I think that it's been great for us to be able to sort of implement them on a limited scale in certain areas, and then also to use them more wide scale. All right, so we have a question so far. The old current law allows a player to handle the ball after. So let's get into let's get into the actual discussion, and then we can get on questions of the law. Okay, so let's start right in here. First thing up is a possession issue. This is I think it's a definition clarification that they're trying to go through, and what the clarification around this will be is that when a player is attempting to handle a ball, they will be considered under law that they actually have control of that ball. And so there's a clip here that will show a little bit of the inspiration behind it, and then we can discuss a little more.
Out first.
So to show this, he kicks the ball. He's attempting to field the ball, but he's considered to have caught it and to brought it into touch. And so there's a gain in ground there for this line out. You can see the place of the line out is actually as if he would have caught it and then ran out with it. And so a player who is attempting to catch the ball is considered to have caught it. That's why the line out is there instead of a direct kick, quote unquote, on the full. And that's why the line out is here instead of back where the kicker was. I've also added down here for those coaches and players on the call, I've added some important for, which positions is most important for. This is simply a little guide. Please, I would suggest all players need to know all of the different law changes, but I also know the realities of maybe teaching all the players, even the current laws, let alone some new law trials. So hopefully there's a little bit of a primer for you to be able to use. Okay, number of players. This has to do with when an uncontested scrum happens. And so when a team has to have uncontested scrums, which is the result of a sending off, a temporary suspension, or an injury, then that scrum must be played with 8 players per side. So for example, if a team has a prop that is yellow carded and there's no more props available and they must go to uncontested scrums, a player from the back line must be added to that scrum in order to play with 8 players.
8-man scrum must be played.
Oh.
10 men, crouch, bind, set.
So as you can see, they've forced that team to add a player.
Stay down still, 7. Good.
So this one's pretty straightforward. Again, you just don't want to have uncontested scrums to where a team will call for uncontested scrums potentially as a way to game the system. This will now force that team to actually put a full 8 in there. This is for all ages of rugby. Unless otherwise designated, all of the law changes are for all ages of rugby. Yes, correct. Good questions. All right, Law 5. So we have Law 5. It's time. This is an important one to know. I think this is one that's going to be key for us to go to impart to our folks, especially those captains, kickers, and decision makers. This is where basically the end of the game, the end of the half and the end of the game cannot end on a penalty, and the players will have to then address that. And so if there's a penalty awarded after full time, those players are allowed to then call for a scrum and have the scrum, kick to touch, and have the line out. If the players would like that game to end or would like that half to end, and there's been a penalty awarded to them, they must tap the ball first to restart play, then kick the ball to touch. And that's what would then end it. So we'll show some clips here. So you can see we're in 80 minutes. Penalty was awarded.
Okay, not rolling. 6. Yeah, last play. If you can Sorry, if you lads, if you kick into touch, we have a line out. If you tap and kick, it's in the game. Okay?
Overall trials now allow the line out to take
Oh, apologies.
place from this penalty kick.
Yeah, okay.
And then one more here. It's a little bit better example.
That's half time. Like tap first, I show you tap. Ready?
So this team does not want to be able to play that line out, so he taps it first, kicks it directly into touch. So this is something that we'll have to be working on as referees as well as players and teams. It will be a reminder likely from all of us to each other, and it'll be something that we can do together. But as the end of the half or end of the game, then it is a penalty awarded past the time when the half should end or when the game should end. That is a time when the players are allowed to kick the ball to touch and play the line out. Or, of course, they can also call for the scrum. All right, question we had, what is it to stop offender from jumping and attempting to secure possession previously mentioned and thereby causing the ball to be touched? Don't fully follow your question there, Callum, if you can potentially reword it. Okay. Any other questions about the end of the half or the end of the game? I think this is a popular one so far. I think there's been a lot of folks who have really appreciated this law variation. Okay. All right, Law 8, advantage. This is a great one as well. It's been really strong for the teams who have been able to use it. If you get multiple advantages during the same phase of play, the team in possession of the ball who is gaining those advantages will be able to choose between which penalty they'll be able to choose from. So in case you had a player not rolling away on the 50-meter line dead center, and then you advanced a couple phases, but you're still under advantage, and you had a player diving over, the referee blows the whistle at the penalty at that point, you would have an option as to which penalty you would like to play. So it shows it here clearly in this clip.
Nicoli gets them on the front foot. The cheaters venture left hand side. Mohoche.
So advantage there.
Position with the Sharks. Pretty worst days.
I think we're about at the 22. So referee keeps playing.
Back into the traffic goes Raymond Rule. Not enough advantage.
Two penalties, offside first, and then not running. Offside.
Penalty for the cheaters.
We saw it also. Yeah, he's on.
All right, so as you can see there's two different penalties. The referee gives the option, and it's very key here that referees do not make the decision on behalf of teams. This is something where you want to give a captain an option. And so the option for that captain could be to where you don't know what the better advantage would be for that team. They might have a good kicker or a bad kicker. They might want to go for points or not. So it's always good to give the option for that captain and that team which penalty they would like to utilize. And so this would just be a quick conversation between a referee and a captain to know which penalty they would like to utilize. So I apologize, folks. There's a couple questions, so I'm just going to read through these quickly as we're going here. All right, so I'm going to try not to go back too many slides on questions. If you have individual questions, we can address them, but try to ask the questions on the time that we're in it. So Erica asks about the scrum change. What do you mean if there's no prop available? So Erica, this is only when you're going to unopposed scrums. So when you're going to uncontested scrums is the only time that you're talking about doing this. If you have a replacement prop and they're allowed to go in, that would not apply. All right. So Mario asks, if it's a free kick instead of a penalty kick, will the match finish? It is the same structure, free kick, as you would a penalty kick, except if you kick a free kick to touch, it's not a retention ball for the line out, so that game would end at that point. Team taking a quick tap is their declaration of an option. So that's for this Law 8. Correct, Alexander. So if a team takes a quick tap right there at the penalty before a referee is able to give you the option, you play on. So that is the team taking their advantage and going ahead and making their declaration. That's correct. If the quick tap is taken, play on and move through it. Question is, some of these are already in place for sevens? Correct. Some of these are already in place for sevens. So you'll see that some of these are very familiar. Question is, would a scrum advantage count in this? And yes, if you had advantage from a scrum, which we rarely would play advantage on a penalty from a scrum because most of the time it's a safety issue. But in case you had advantage from a penalty from a scrum, and then you played through a couple phases and had a different penalty, that would be the option. You could go back to where the scrum was or where the other option would be. In a rare instance, you might have three options because a team just keeps infringing. And so that could happen. All right. Let's see here. If Team A gets multiple knock-on advantages, are they allowed to choose where the scrum is? Yes, so you can choose the mark of the penalty, and then from there, you can either choose a penalty kick, a kick at goal, a kick for the touchline, or of course a scrum option. So you can choose a scrum at any one of the penalty advantages you had. All right, great questions, everybody. Should the referee call advantage gained when the first penalty kick ended, but the second is still on? You wouldn't have that happen, Joe. So if you're within a phase and you have several penalty advantages, you would never have any of them turn off. You would actually have the option for all of them because again, you might be playing dead center at the 40-meter line, and then all of a sudden they make it all the way down to the 5-meter line, but on the touch line, near the touch line, and maybe that team actually wants to back it up and go for 3 points, which the dead center is more advantage to them. So you always give the option for no matter what the gain in ground was. If you have the two different penalty advantages in the same phase of play, you'll give the option. All right. Let's see. I think we got all these answered. Sorry if I'm taking a second here to answer. Jim, for some reason, is asking questions about tackle. We haven't done that yet. All right. Does a penalty advantage trump a scrum advantage or knock on? Or is there an option for a scrum? I see what you mean. So if you have a knock on advantage and then you'll go into a penalty advantage, you would not go back for the knock on advantage. It's only the penalty advantage at that point. So if you have a knock on advantage into a penalty advantage, you're then only on penalties. Correct. Okay, we're going to roll on forward here. Law 9, method of scoring. This should be a pretty straightforward one. If you have to award a penalty try, there is no longer a conversion kick that comes with that. When awarding a penalty try, you are awarding 7 points. So you want to make sure that you are awarding 7 points to that team. No conversion kick is needed. And so you just go back to half line and restart play. So we'll watch the video here.
Again, the scrum is good from the Crusaders. They'll back themselves the whole way. Douglas, can he get control? It won't matter. It's a try. It's a penalty try. No conversion required. That's 7 points in the bag for the Crusaders.
We can stop that one. That was pretty straightforward. So the penalty try, again, value is 7 points. So whenever you're going to get a penalty try or have a penalty try against you, it will just be the 7 points that's awarded. All right. Don asks about the automatic card on penalty try. Don, not necessarily. A penalty try, like in that scrum situation, which one of those defensive scrum members infringed? Well, there could be a bunch of them. And so it's the option of a referee to give the yellow card or not, or potentially a red card on a penalty try. On foul play going in, where it's a clear player who's committed foul play, you will almost always see a yellow card at least on that foul play. And that should be the case. All penalty tries, no matter what kind they are, would get the 7 points. So no matter how you're awarding a penalty try, it is a 7 points. Question: Do you still move between the posts, or could you award it anywhere? Charles, that's a great question, and because no longer do you have to run to the middle for the point of the actual conversion, you could award the penalty try anywhere. But I think our signal right now as referees is we run between the posts, award the penalty try, and then you go back and do the paperwork of giving a card if you have to do it. Okay, rolling forward here. Good questions, folks. The fun part. So this is something that is very new, and I know there'll probably be a lot of questions around this, but I'll try to explain as clearly as I can. So the first thing that we have is the tackle area and the tackler, and the change of allowing them to do different things here. So in the past, a tackler, if they were a tackler, meaning they've brought a ball carrier to ground and they themselves went to ground, meaning their knee hit the ground, so the tackler went to ground as well, they are now called a tackler, and they can get up and play the ball from anywhere. That is the current law. The new law trial here that we're getting into is that the tackler, even though they've gone to ground, has the same responsibilities as the tackle assist. So that means they must get back to their feet and go back around and through the gate before they're allowed to play that ball. And so now what you have done is you have removed the opportunity for a tackler to get up on the quote-unquote wrong side of the tackle and play that ball. They now must get back around, come through the gate, and then they can play the ball. So now all tacklers, whether tackle assist or tackler, must get back on their feet, release the ball, back around to their own side of that breakdown, and go through the gate to attack the ball. So this is a change, and this is something that now I'll show a quick video here. I'll give you an honest assessment. This is not the greatest video. We'll try to find some better ones here. But all folks on defense must get back to their feet, back around, and through the gate. So before we get into questions, I'll just show this clip real quick.
Arata. Pase para Leandro Leiva, le salió bien arriba la defensa, puede contrarraquear bien el equipo italiano. Tackler must go back around. Pero hay penal.
All right, so you can see here, tackler makes the tackle, goes to ground on the wrong side, gets back to feet and tries to play it. That number 13 blue has to go back around and through the gate before playing that ball.
2 tries to Japan in this first
This
half.
is a little clearer. As you can see, he
8.
turns his butt the wrong way.
Tevita Tatafu, Samoa will be penalized, or rather Junior Japan will be penalized. Just about 30.
So you can see it a lot clearer. Tackler makes the tackle. He's on the wrong side of that tackle and tries to play the ball. He must go back around and through the gate as if he was a tackle assist. So they're no longer allowed to play on that quote-unquote wrong side of the ball. All right, so let's see if we can get to some questions. Is tackle assist even a thing now since they both have the same responsibility? Jared, good question. We're going to keep them separate because there's only a law trial, so we'll keep calling them separate things, but that's a great question because they both have the same responsibilities. If the tackler never goes to ground, can they play the ball from any position? No, Ruben, that's a tackle assist. All tacklers or tackle assists must go back around and through the gate after releasing the player. What about, James asks, what about getting up on the quote-unquote right side of the ball, the tackler side, then playing it from there? No problems there, just like the tackle assist, Jim. If you're on the correct side, meaning your own side of the tackle, and you get up, you release clearly, show that you've released that player, you then have rights to go back in and play the ball. Good question. If the tackler makes a positive tackle and ends up on their chest and they get straight to their feet and go and ruck through from there, Kit, that's going to be a referee judgment. But what I would say is, if you're past the point of the player on the ground in any case, or over that player on the ground, you are likely too far. You must go back around and through the gate, or at least take that step back and come through the gate. Can the tackler get up, rotate around in one motion to the side of the gate and play the ball, or must they leave and re-enter? Joy, a great question. So I call this the Richie McCaw, right? And I think he's the greatest example of this. He would tackle, and then he would actually spin his body using the player on the ground as his leverage. And he never really came through that gate in many cases. So I think that's This is one where you want to see a player, you don't have to roll clear of the tackle. You can do the get up, spin around, and then play the ball. But you must have a clear release, and you must come through the gate. You can't have spun just standing up so you're facing the correct direction. You must get back around and through that gate. Question, isn't this allowing the ball carrier more time to release and the ball, pick it up and go again, as the tackler has no time to get to their side? Keith, you're exactly correct. That's the point of this law, is to allow the attack to retain the ball more often. Do the hips have to be square at the goal line? Jeremy, I think that's always a good thing to teach players, is hips square at the goal line means you're coming through the gate. I would say that's all a variable thing, but the more square with the goal line, the better picture you're giving a referee and the clearer they can adjudicate it. Mario asks, what if the tackler does not play the ball? They just stand on the wrong side. Then they're going to be liable for offside. Whether they play the ball or not, they're offside. Andrew asks, is this a penalty for offside or gate entry? And so it's actually gate entry. And so I don't know if you saw the first clip there. This is actually me in the clip. It's a gate entry violation of the player. Good question. As long as tackler's in onside position, can he still be jackal, or does he have to back out and re-enter? As long as the tackler is on an onside position and you've done your responsibilities, you're fine to keep playing. I would say you don't have to vacate the area before you come back into play. It's just you have to follow the responsibilities. On your feet, release the ball carrier and the ball through the gate. All right. No tackle, but ball carrier brought to ground. Can you play it from any side? Andre, no, that would still be a tackle assist. Now, if there's no tackle at all, meaning a player tripped and just went to ground, and you were near it, then there's no responsibilities of tackler or ball carrier on the ground. It's open play, and so you can play the ball from anywhere at that point. All right. Evan asks if you can jump over the player on the ground before you play it. Evan, I would say, however you are not impeding the ball being produced and played, you can do it. I know, Evan, you are extremely athletic and likely could bound over that player like a tall building, but okay. So, okay, the change says from the tackle gate, not from the tackle. So the tackle gate is the structure around the tackle. All right. Does ball carrier have to come through the gate? Does the ball carrier have to come through the gate? Example, tackled, place the ball behind them, and seal the defensive player off from the ball. So the ball carrier still must release the ball, get back to their feet to play the ball. That's still a responsibility of the ball carrier. All right. Long body position from the tackled player. Does the gate start at his feet? So long body position, the gate is as wide as the body of that player. And so if the player's long body, that's usually shoulder to shoulder. If they're more in the staple fashion or the shrimp fashion, that could be butt to head. It just depends on whatever they're giving you. All right. So a lot of the questions I'm going to keep. So this is for 7s, 15s, 10s. It's for all areas of the game. So that's something you can keep. Can you define a clear release? Is it showing hands? Bill, great question. We get this question a lot. A clear release is showing a very clear picture to the referee of a clear release. And so I say that vaguely because it means different things. If you can show that both hands came off the body of the player and the ball, that's showing a clear release. If you're getting called for it but still feeling like you're releasing, I would say show a clearer picture to the referee. That way you're not allowing the referee to make a decision. You're making the decision on behalf of the referee. All right. Good. Okay, just kind of rolling through these questions. All right. Question from Derek asks about if you have your hands on the ball before the ruck is formed, you're allowed to continue to play it. That has not changed. There's nothing about the ruck here, Derek. It's just the tackle. So still no changes for the ruck there. Okay, moving on. Great job, folks. This is great questions. Okay, make sure I got this one. Tackle. Okay, now I'm on to amended ruck law. This is fun. The amended ruck law is going to be a nice challenge as well. They have altered what a ruck, the definition of a ruck. I think several folks have called this the fix to the quote-unquote Italy problem. If you saw the England-Italy game, and I know several teams in the U.S. tried this after that game, but this is something to where a ruck now commences after one player is, sorry, too many buttons. A ruck commences when at least one player is on their feet and over the ball, which is on the ground, among a tackled player or a tackler. And then, of course, at this point, a ruck is formed and an offside line is created. So I'm going to show you this clip real quick and we can talk through questions. But basically, a ruck now forms with one player over the ball instead of one player from each team like it used to be.
Advantage offside.
So as you can see, there was just Australia in this breakdown. So I'm trying to show you real quick. No ruck was formed. Oh, sorry about that. Too many buttons I'm hitting here. So at this point, there was traditionally, as to the old law, there would have been no ruck here because it's just one team's players over the top here. The red team decided not to form a ruck, and so this would have been a no ruck situation or a tackle only in the old law. With the new trials, this is now a ruck. Hence then, there is offside lines, and if you watch then as this goes forward, relatively clearly you can see these players never got back on side, and so there is now offside. So what you're going to find is that one supporting player over the top of the ball is a ruck. I want to clarify this real quickly. After a tackle has taken place is what we're talking about. If there's just a ball on the ground over here, sitting there, and one person comes and stands over that ball, that's not a ruck. So just a ball on the ground that I go and stand over, that's not a ruck. After a tackle, one person over the top of that is a ruck. All right, so let's get to some questions here. Don says this will create a lot of offside situations. Don, you're exactly right. And I think what you kind of have to assume as a player and as a coach now at this point is that nearly every tackle will turn into a ruck. And you have to sort of assume that's the case. It might be the odd time that you don't have a ruck form, but I think for the most part, you're just going to have to anticipate more often than not it's going to be a ruck. Instead of potentially where we're getting to at the end of this last season in many games, which was we're assuming it's not a ruck in many cases. All right. What is the offside line for the defensive team? Last feet of the tackler, the gate, the head of the supporting player. Great question here, and I'm actually going to back this video up if I can get this done to show you. Right here, this is the last foot for that defensive team. So it's wherever the last part of the bodies on this breakdown would be, and that would be the last foot for those teammates. You don't love the fact that he got his hands. That's not a great body position, the hands down. But you can see he fixes it very quickly and gets back up into a good body position. And so we're not going to fault him for that. But right there is that offside line, and that's what's going to be created. Good question. All right, Italy problems. Okay. Let's see. Good. Is the mark of the tackle or the line offside player the tackle line? Is the mark at the tackle or in line with the offside player at the tackle line? So I showed you that last foot there. Fullback last defender makes the tackle. Offensive player stands up over the ball briefly to form a new ruck, then picks up the ball to go forward. Is rest of the defense offside, and how do they get back onside to make the tackle? So I think, Kenneth, your point is this: if red happened to get up here first, and there's no other yellow players here, and if red happened to get up and just play the ball, is a ruck formed? And that's a different situation. If red gets up over the ball and plays the ball, it's just back up into open play. And so if he gets the ball in his hands, we're back into open play. If this person doesn't release, it's not releasing on the ground. If they impact, of course, the ruck is formed, and the ruck has been formed. So it's the same situation, but for a player who immediately gets to their feet and plays the ball, it's open play at that time, and they're just playing the ball, and we're moving on. So Jeremy asks from the Rugby Coaches Facebook page. Ooh, questions from the Rugby Coaches Facebook page. Attacking player chirps over and beyond the defense, recovers the ball and runs onward. Ball carrier then gets tackled by the defensive fullback. First player to tackle point is from the attacking side. He stands over the ball momentarily and picks it up. Yeah, there's a lot of difficult questions here. Let's see how we do. After a tackle, the arriving offensive support player steps over the ball. Okay, so this one, if Gold decided to pick this ball up and run, they could also do that. So if Gold decides that they would like to pick this ball up and run, they can do it as long as they were the last player in this breakdown. So now that a ruck has been formed, the last player must be the one to pick it up. If only this first Gold player was here and there was no other Gold player, this player could pick up the ball and run. All right. After a tackle, defense is set up across the field without anyone in contact of the offensive support player. Offensive support player picks up the ball and runs. Yep, that's okay. So that's a good question. We all have the same question here. You cannot have a ruck without a tackle. Good question, Stephen. That's a good way to put it. Vincent, his hands are on the ground, but he immediately readjusts. If he stayed with his hands on the ground, we might say something to him or manage it, but not too bad. All right. In cases with quick ball, are we going to need to rethink about Law 11.3 when backline is not finished getting onside? Eric, this is a great question because if I'm going to fast forward the video here a little bit. If this was a super quick ball and red was still retreating here and the ball came out quickly, you just need to keep conscious of that red retreating is not offside. If red is impactful and becomes involved in the game from an offside position, that's offside. I think the referee deemed these players to walk up too early, and so that's why he got them as offside. But if players are retreating, which will happen a lot now because a quote-unquote ruck has formed, and of course now we have to call it that way. So if players are retreating, you'll allow them to retreat as per their responsibility. All right. What does it mean for the rolling away aspect? As a referee, will we still call the tackled player to roll away? We will, of course, call the tackled player to roll away because it's still the first responsibility here. Before arriving players, of course, we adjudicate the tackle. The tackle is the first thing. So the first thing is tackler releasing away, then ball carrier release the ball, and then arriving players is third. Isn't this going to make it hard for defenders to get their hands on the ball before ruck forms? Absolutely it will. I think you're all kind of seeing the theme here, which is a lot of these law trials are advantaging the attack side. And that's just kind of happens to be the way that's going. Questions around changing verbiage. I would say don't change verbiage yet because these are law trials. As with anything, we'll gain a new set of terms around this stuff, but I wouldn't change anything drastically. Okay, let's see here. These questions, understand correctly once they move. Question is, if I'm understanding correctly, once the tackler moves, there is just one player over the ball and the ruck is no longer formed. Do I have that right? No. So if there is a ruck formed, it is a ruck until that ruck is over, meaning the ball has left the breakdown. So that is the way it is Once a ruck is formed, it is a ruck until it is over, either because of penalty or because the ball has left. So someone asks, the slides ask, so the slides have clarified. If you look at the slide here, let me see if I can get out of this. The slides here clarify it is tackled player and tackler, so that is part of the slides here, David. Okay, try and get through these. So the question is around verbiage and what we should use. The verbiage you'd use here, of course, is that it's now ruck, and so I know some referees will adjudicate and will verbalize a ruck when there's a question if there's a ruck or not. And I think we don't want to call every breakdown and say ruck or tackle only. You don't want to get into that because just as a referee, you're going to wear your voice out. But I think if there's a question around it, it's a good time to verbalize the word ruck. Is flooding still penalized? Yes, but only the issues at hand are changed. So everything else is still legal that was illegal before. Everything else that was legal is still legal. All right. If gold binds onto the player on the ground, preventing him from rolling away, do you penalize gold? Jeremy, you wouldn't do that unless there was some sort of foul play in there issue in there. I think you also wouldn't penalize red for not rolling away if gold was holding them in there. All right, so we're just going to get through some of these questions, folks, in interest of time. Can there be side entry, incorrect zone entry? Yes, so still those supporting players have to enter in the correct gate. So still have to enter through that tackle gate. Even if there's not going to be any opposition, you still have to arrive correctly. All right, great job, folks. Other ruck offenses. This one's pretty clear and straightforward. It's just not able to kick the ball out of a ruck. So I'll show you the videos here. We used to allow there to be players who were involved in a ruck to sort of kick the ball through. As long as they weren't coming around the outside, they could kick the ball through the middle. So I'm going to show you the video here.
Vantage kicking the ball in the ruck.
So no problems there. No problems there in the old law because the player just came through the gate, they were correctly engaged in the ruck, and they kicked it with their foot. So no problems in the old law. Now, a player is not allowed to kick the ball forward in a ruck. They must hook it back. So they're still allowed to hook the ball back. They cannot kick it forward. So watch the other clip here.
Great counter-rucking though from England.
All right. Not sure that's as clear as I'd like it to be. I guess the hook is the okay part. You're allowed to hook the ball back as the blue team did, but just no kicking it forward. This is mostly a second row thing, to be honest with you. I think every time I've seen a second row in a ruck, at some point the ruck is kind of lost and they end up just kind of kicking at the ball because why not? They have long legs. Let's try it. So I think it's just something to warn those folks about. We want to see them positively hooking the ball back, not kicking the ball through. No questions on this one? All right. Moving on. All right. So folks, listen, there's a lot of questions that don't have to do with this stuff. I'm just going to keep the questions to the stuff that's on the screen. Ask, can you kick it to the side? I think, are they hooking the ball back or are they just kicking at it? And that's really what you're looking for. So as a referee, you're looking at the outcomes. And if a player's just hacking at it and the ball spurts out the side, you might still penalize them. If they're hacking at it and squirts out the back, that's very clear. If they're really trying to hook it forward and it dribbles out the side, you may not penalize for that. So I think it's a judgment call from a referee. I think certainly this is something that's, of course, going towards safety because they just don't want errant kicks in a breakdown that could potentially hit a player on the ground. So that's really what what the safety item is around this. I'm getting some flack from second rows saying that I'm picking on them, so I apologies for those beautiful second rows that keep us all safe out there. All right. I can assume you can still call a mark in the air. So, all right. So we're going on to the Law 18. Good question. So to make a mark, as we all know, the mark is able to be made within the 22. To make a mark, did I skip one? Sorry, hang on. Nope. To make a mark, a player must have one or both feet on or behind that player's 22-meter line and catch the ball that has reached the plane of the 22-meter line. So the idea with this is that the player must have at least one or both feet on or behind that player's 22-meter line. So the player themselves physically must be on or behind that line. As well, then, the ball must have crossed the plane of the 22. So in the past, it could have been where the player had both feet in the 22-meter line who caught the ball outside of the 22-meter line, and we would have then called that as inside. But now it is such that the ball must have actually crossed that plane. This is going to be very difficult to adjudicate as a referee. Those are very finite changes, but I would say this is maybe something that you warn your ARs about. Wings, fullbacks, fly halves who do a lot of catching and calling of marks, that's a great thing to do. So just make sure they're alert and they understand the difference in this law. Comment from the crowd, skip this one, it's the USA and we don't call marks. All right, there we go. Well done, team. Keeping it rolling. Okay, so this one, touch definition. This is one that's a little bit, again, in the weeds. I would be very surprised if a lot of people knew the way it currently is as opposed to the way it will be. I'm going to give you a 30,000-foot explanation of this before we show the videos. The thought here is that it used to be where the player was in relation to some things and where the player was jumping and where their feet were and where they landed and all this other kind of stuff that went into this. They've now simplified this down to where it is the ball and the plane of touch, and then as well has the player been out of the playing enclosure yet. And so as I show this here, this is going to be advantaging the game and making it more exciting. Meaning in the past, if I dove into touch, grabbed the ball and tossed it back in, it would have been in touch. Now it's play on. So basically what they're doing is saying everything that's more fun, let it go, because it's awesome and the crowd wants to see it. So when in doubt, think of that as your guide. So let's watch some clips here and see it. First thing is, if the ball is past the plane of touch when it's caught, then the catcher is not deemed to have taken the ball into touch. So this is one where we used to have the striding the line, you'll see it. This is, again, wings, fullbacks, anybody who's fielding the ball like this. Come on.
Sean Reedy has come a long way, hasn't he, in the last 12 months or so. Jackson hoists it. It's on a Benderman, it's straight into touch. Claremont always thinking laterally though, aren't they? First real unforced error that we've seen.
So, oh, sorry. Here we go. This thing's so touchy. Fast forward this year. So what I want to show you here is key. Oh my gosh. Apologies, folks. Technology and me.
First real unforced error that we've seen in open play.
Okay. So what I want to show you is he had strided the line, but the ball was actually in touch and past this plane of this line when he caught it. That's the important part here. It used to be, even if the ball would have been in here to his right and he caught it, but he had 1 foot in touch, that would have been out and it would have been bring the line out back up this way. It's no longer that way. So it's, did the ball cross the plane of touch here or not? And that's really the important key to look at here. So I'm just going to show you, let this play through so you can see it.
First real unforced error that we've seen in open play. Then good awareness of the touchline.
So because the ball was already out when he caught it, that's the metric we're looking at. If the ball has not yet passed the plane of touch and they catch it, then they have been deemed to take the ball into touch. And so if you watch this one, it's a little bit different here.
Taken back.
As you can tell, just getting used to some new laws.
Your play took it out.
So as you can see, in the old days, again, this would have been fine because that player was deemed to not take it into touch. But when he catches this ball, it's inside the plane of the line, meaning this player then brought the ball into touch. So it's a reversal of what it used to be, where that was the case. I know we're in a little bit of subtleties here, but I'll try to address some questions here. All right. Does this affect grounding a ball in the try zone if the ball is in front of the line? Yes, actually, good question, Jared. We're actually on to that one next. So this is now all lines on the field, and it's the same thing then. This is just as if this was the 22, just as we talked about the mark and making the mark. This is the same as the 22. If you catch the ball outside that 22, it's deemed that this player brought it into the 22. If this player catches the ball, even though he's out of touch, he's in touch, and catches the ball that's in the field of play, he's deemed to have brought it into touch. And so it's the same thing in all different lines, even the try line then, all around the field. Dead ball, try line, all of them. Great questions, guys. Question is, unless you have AR, is very difficult to see. Yes, 100%. And I think this is one where it definitely will be difficult to see and difficult for us as referees. But I think, again, like with anything, we become used to it and we try to adjust. All right, so last one, player jumping for the playing area. This is one you'll all enjoy.
Ignati gets it back to win Leisure makes a good purchase. Nice clearance. Has been battered and still in play from not.
So again, player jumps from the playing area. Jumps from the playing area, that's key. So they must jump from the playing area inside. They jump out into touch. They knock the ball back. It's play on. Even though they landed in touch. Again, in the old days, it was if you jumped from inside and you landed outside and you knocked the ball back in, it would have been in touch and the game would have stopped. Now we're trying to advantage those athletic players who are doing some really cool things, honestly. And so this player jumps from inside the field of play into touch, knocks the ball back in, of course backward, and it's play on.
Kick out long. It's for Adam Knight. Whoa, what has happened here? They're going to have a look. Did he stay in?
So even though the ball's gone past, even though this player jumps from in the field of play, ball's gone past, that's fine, no problems, no problems. Jumps from in the field of play, throws it back in, awesome. Try time, crowd goes nuts, everyone loves it. All right, let's look at some questions. How are these going to be officiated when our B-side players are touch judges in lieu of actual ARs? Alex, absolutely amazing question. And what I'll tell you is there's a touch judge course online at USA Rugby's website where everybody can take it, get certified as a touch judge, and every team out there should at least have 10 of these people certified from the online course. That way we have lots of touch judges out there. If you're a high school program, get all your parents certified. What a great way to use those parents. Instead of them screaming at the kids or at the coaches or at the referee, get them a flag in their hands. Wonderful idea. Thanks, Alex. All right, rolling forward. Okay, no gain in ground. So if a player with one or both feet on or behind the 22-meter line picks up the ball, which was outside the 22-meter line, then, of course, as they kick it forward, there's no gain in ground. This is the same idea as with the mark. If they pick a ball up that was outside that 22, even though it was rolling forward and they are inside, they are deemed to have brought the ball back. So same laws all around. This is kind of making everything the same, which is good for us. Okay, so before we go on to the scrum here, I just want to see if there's any previous questions around the touch laws. I know it's a little complicated, but I think that was pretty straightforward stuff. We'll keep rolling. Promise not to take too much more of your time. Okay, so throwing the ball into the scrum. Scrums are going to be a little different for us. So to be completely frank and honest, it's like I said, I refereed a couple tournaments with this, and I think it's been great so far. I think we had way less resets, less kind of what I'd call mucking about, and it still allowed for teams that wanted to use the scrum as an attacking technique or wanted to be dominant. It still allows for that. So I think you'll be exciting about this. One last question. Sorry, Johan asked, when calling a mark, does one or both feet have to be on the ground? No, you can be in the air and call a mark. Touch law in goal. If ball keeps rolling, if you stand out of touch in goal, that means the ball has gone out in goal. So if the ball has not crossed the plane of the dead ball or the ball has not crossed the plane of the touch line, it's considered outside of the field or outside of that in goal area. Good question. All right, on to scrum. So first, throwing the ball in the scrum. We are no longer, as referees, going to give the signal to the scrum halves to put the ball in. It's going to be up to them to put the ball in when the scrum is stable. And so this is key. They must wait until the scrum is stable, but once it is, they can get the ball in. The scrum being stable, of course, is a variable thing, but I think we will have a very high standard as referees. We want a very stable and settled scrum before that ball goes in. Many referees, in fact, most referees, at least in the first few scrums of every game, will quote unquote take the tunnel and place yourself in front of that tunnel in order to maybe just make sure that thing is stable before you allow the scrum half to put the ball in. But from there on, it's up to the scrum halves. With that then, there's no delay allowed once the ball has been presented to the scrum. And this is not something you should rush to. It's about just giving people a proper time. Most teams at this point, the scrum half is tapping the hooker with the ball, and then they're going down, and then they're putting the ball in. Allow for that, of course. But what you don't want to allow for is you're just waiting there, and the scrum half isn't putting the ball in. You're saying, put it in, let's go, and nothing's happening. That's when you'd end up going to a free kick. So I think that's something to think about, to where you don't want to rush to this. It might also be something the first time it happens, just blow it up, stand up and say, scrum half, we got to get the ball in. It's up to you now. I don't give you a signal anymore, just as a reminder. All right. So the other part of this, how the scrum half puts in the ball. So scrum half must throw the ball in straight, but is allowed to align their shoulder on the middle line of the scrum, therefore allowing them to stand a shoulder width towards their own side of the middle line. So what this does is, and we've heard this in the community a lot, we never call feeding as referees. This is going to solve that problem of having to call feeding. We must call feeding as referees now, because the ball must be put in straight. The advantage that a team is now being offered is the half a body width of gain the scrum half has and where they can put the ball in. But what that means is the ball must be straight and be put in actually straight. Being put into the second rows is no longer something that we should permit as referees. I'm going to go ahead and show this video, and then we can go through the questions.
Fine. Set.
So you can see.
Stay close, 9. That's carry back.
Great example there. I'm going to show it again just to show where that scrum half actually sets up.
Set.
Right here, the scrum half's left shoulder is in line with the front rows. So that's where that scrum half is allowed to stand. But then that ball must be put in straight there. And that's the advantage that the scrum halves are being offered. So the scrum half is allowed to line up to where the shoulder is in line with the front row shoulders where they engage, and then that ball must be put in straight. All right, let's get into some questions. Scrum half has his left shoulder at the middle line and puts the ball in straight from there. The physics of the ball will come in on his side of the middle line, but is not to be called off. So correct, as long as the ball goes in straight from where they are, then that's fine. If the 9 takes forever to put it in, will you vocalize? Yeah, I think that, again, especially the first couple of games that we're doing this, if they're taking some time, get the ball in 9. Like, here we go, just get the ball, get the game moving. you don't want to reset scrums when you don't have to. So if there's a way to just, instead of blowing up the scrum and making them stand up, props don't like resets. So let's not make them do it too many times. Sanction for putting the ball in before the scrum is steady, free kick. Yes, it is free kick. Managed the first time. I think there's no problem with managing that the first time. You don't want to just get into free kicks out of the gate and then you're into penalties and then you're into something else. So I think it's again, all of these you want to work with both teams. This is a nice pre-match chat item. I like to keep pre-match chats as short as humanly possible, but I would say for this coming season, my pre-match would include the tackle items, the ruck items, and the scrum items. All right. For U19, will be any extra structure for stability? Nope. So all the same laws for all ages, all levels. If the scrum half decides to rush the put in and the scrum is not stable, would you reset? Sorry, same question. Apologies. Question: we must call feeding as referees now. Why were you not before? Why not enforce the old law? David, I will tell you that is a question we get constantly, and I don't have a great answer for you. It is a custom that has become a custom in the game, but I will commit to you that we're trying to fix it with this. Scrum half can no longer time the hit. Correct, Vincent. Putting the ball in on the hit is not stable, or if it is, it's a very, very, very good scrum that can have a stable scrum on the hit. So it must be a stable scrum, and so I'd say there's at least got to be some sort of a pause to make sure it's stable before that ball goes in. Good question. Can you spin the ball to dive right at the hooker's feet? No, the ball must be rolled in straight. And I think straight is a new focus of everyone nationally, and so it's going to be something to where hookers are going to have to learn to hook again. And because I think many have been bred through a system where hooking was not a thing because it didn't have to be. So I think that's a new talent or a new technique that's going to have to be taught again. Good questions. All right, moving on. Oh, Craig, anyone in the front row can strike for the ball. Correct. Yes, anyone in the front row can strike for the ball. All right. And per that, any front row player might be able to strike for the ball. So any front row player may use either foot to win possession of the ball. One player from the team who put the ball in must strike for the ball. So this is key. You cannot have teams put the ball in and then try to drive over top of it. There must be a hook there. You also cannot have two very equally matched teams where the ball gets rolled in and then just sits there for a whole long time. We've probably seen those scrums sometimes. A couple came out of Argentina where they just sit there and the ball is in there for 15, 20 seconds. So we can watch this clip real quick.
Está pasando en el caso de las dos defensas lo mismo. Los ataques están teniendo facilidades para agrupar gente y encontrar espacios por afuera. Quizá el que dé un paso al frente en la...
Yes, Steve Gore, that is the best looking referee there is. So that's a good example of the timing as to it just took too long. It's something where I think it's not a pre-prescribed 1,000, 2. It's not like that, but it's simply where they had plenty of time to set up the ball, to get the ball in, to hook it, and they didn't. And so that's where, as a referee, I vocalized their hook it, and again, no hook was made, and so that's where we then called the free kick. Question from Marlon: would rolling the ball through the tunnel be a free kick? No, I think sometimes the timing just gets off, and if the ball rolls the entire way through the tunnel and out the other side, that happens. It's just the ball coming out the side, the same way you would reset of before. If the ball touches the ground just inside the front row's shoulders, may he strike for the hook? Yep, any front row can strike for the hook. Does defending team have to strike? Nope, just the attacking team. What would be the secondary signal? That's a great question, Mario. And so just in case we got that question, I added a video here. This was my suggestion. I don't have any kind of guidance from World Rugby to give you on this, but this was my suggestion was, this is our boy Wayne Barnes showing you must be hooked. I would also say you could do a little dance showing the hook with your foot if you want to look really silly. I'll take any suggestions for a secondary that any referees have out there. Oh, good. Jeff says the UK already uses that secondary for the same call. So perfect. We got it right. Okay, handling in the scrum. This is something, again, I don't think many referees called or has maybe seen. And it's not, you don't see it a lot in a lot of games, but I think where you have a really talented eight-man that knows what they're doing, they will sometimes pick the ball up early from the feet of the second rows. Technically, in previous law, this was disallowed. But this is something we're now going to allow simply because they want to get the game moving. And so if you watch these clips here, the second row the eighth man can pick up the ball from the second rows and play it. So that's a pretty clear clip. Question came in already. Do they have to be unbound to pick up the ball? As you could see, he was not unbound there. But if they do pick it up and are still bound in, they must play it immediately. And so sometimes some eight men will pick up the ball and pass it to the scrum half. Others will pick it up and run. I think we're looking for them to play it immediately. What we don't want is for them to have picked up the ball and they're still bound in and they're not doing anything with it. So that's absolutely the case that we want to see. Question from Peter: what is the non-throwing team is driving the team in possession? Can the eight reach into the second rows and salvage a bad situation? Yes, Peter. So this is where the eighth man is allowed to pick up the ball in that situation, as well as in this situation, as you saw here, nice stable scrum. Although I would say when you're going backward on roller skates, like some scrums do, it's very difficult for the eighth man to do that, and likely it ends up in a knock-on more than anything else. Question: is a shoulder and forearm still bound for eighth man? Jeremy, it depends kind of on where they're bound, but you're looking for at least a shoulder in for a bind. Technically in law, bind is shoulder and arm, grasping. Eighth man must play ball immediately or else if he is not bound. Correct. Yes. So if an eighth man comes unbound to play the ball, they must play the ball immediately. Correct. If eight holds it too long, what's the call? It's going to be playing the ball in the scrum with your hands really is what it ends up being, because you're not allowed to do that, and so that's the call you'd have in there, and it's a dangerous situation. You don't want to let scrums go on too long in situations where there could be danger. All right. Can the eight use his hands to pull the ball back and leave it at his feet, or he must picked up and played? Picked up and played. So that you're looking for it to be picked up and played. And as you can see in the law amendment trial, it says definitely pick it up from the feet. You don't want to allow them just to use their hand to move the ball back to where they then can play it. Good question, Jenny. All right. Moving forward. Great job, team. We're almost there. Question about the last one. What if he tries to pick up the ball, pick up and unbinds, but is slow getting it? Can the defense unbind and hit? So as soon as you deem the ball to be played and out, that's when it is. Colin, that's not something that's a standard timing. It would be when you're deeming that situation to have occurred. Where does the defending nine now stop when he follows the ball through the scrum? Do they stop at the second row? Good question, Eamon. I think this is something where they're not allowed back in there, but the ball is the offside line. So they can go back as far as the ball with the offside line. They just cannot be in the pocket between the flanker and the second row. Sean says our videos for slides 17 and 18 are not in the Dropbox. Sean, my apologies. I'll get those added as soon as the presentation's over. My fault for not getting those in there. So I'll get those added as soon as we're done here. All right. Defending player in goal. So if a player with one or both feet on or behind the goal line picks up the ball from within the field of play, catches the ball in front of the goal line, the player has been taken possession of the ball in the field of play. So what this is same as the 22, same as the touch line stuff, just another clarification for in goal. So I'll show you the video here.
For the lovely Good footwork there. It's put a lot into the kick, but it holds up nicely. Not nice enough from an England point of view.
Again, in the past, this would have been a kick up. Now he's deemed to have brought that ball back in because the ball itself did not cross that plane. And so this player now brought that ball back in. It would be a scrum 5 to the other team. So now he's deemed to have taken that back in. This is a very impactful call, especially for those wings, fullbacks, fly halves. So make sure that they're understanding the differences here. Most law trials and changes, you can basically leave the wings and fullbacks out of the discussion. For this round, I think it's very important to get them involved and really get to learn this stuff. Robert asks, if the 8 dribbles the ball forward in a scrum, it's a knock-on or is there tolerance for fumbling about? Robert, any knock-on in the scrum of a pickup, or I'm sorry, any fumbling of the ball forward while an 8th man or anyone else in the scrum who was trying to pick up to play it, it would be deemed as a knock-on, and you'd reset and award the scrum to the other team. All right, Andre asks, so it doesn't matter if the ball's rolling anymore. Andre, correct. So no more, if the ball's rolling, it's different. If it's stationary, it's different. No more of that. It's where is that ball physically? Did it cross that line or not? And that's what we're going to call. Can you play Law 22 video again? Yes, I'll play it one more time for you here. Comment is you can leave backs out of mostly everything, as they really don't play rugby. Love it.
Lovely footwork there. It's put a lot into the kick, but it holds up nicely. Not nice enough from an England point of view.
So again, in this game, in the old laws, that was okay. That would have been back of the scrum way up there. Now Gold picks it up before it goes in, brings it back in and touches it down. Now he's brought it in. It's going to be a scrum 5 to the other team. All right, on to some questions. Is Law 22.9b example going back to what law originally was? Not too long ago. Potentially, Vincent. Honestly, I'm not sure. I wipe all previous law from my mind if possible. 8-man picks it up at a second row and sets. Don asks, if the 8-man picks the ball up out of the second row and sets it at his feet, the scrum have to take his obstruction. Yeah, the 8th man must play the ball then. They must pass it out or pick it up and run. So they don't have the option to then place it back within the scrum. That's bringing the ball back into the scrum. Keith asks, if the fullback tries to catch the ball, catch the kick ball, but juggles the ball as he steps into touch, does he have possession? Correct, Keith. So it's that back to that first law. If the fullback tries to catch the ball but juggles it, he's deemed to actually have caught possession of it, meaning he's the one who have brought it into touch. All right. Oh, Peter corrected me. That would have been a 22-meter drop. Peter, you're exactly right. In the old law, this 22.9 would have been 22-meter. Now it's a scrum 5. Good call. All right. So, nearing the end here. Defending player in goal. Again, same thing. Let's watch the video here.
This time it's snapped up by Debrasini. Waiting for a bounce, and this is, well, unlucky. You have to say it's unlucky, because it could just as easily have gone out near the goal line, but you're going to have to come all the way back now. There's a bit of discussion going on here.
This is exactly right. He's actually, the discussion is whether or not he's carried the ball into touch.
22 drop down.
So it will come all the way back down inside the 22, just getting explained here.
All right, so as you can see here, ball stays in the field, in the in goal, and he actually brings it into touch. That means in the old laws, that would have been a kick up, a gain in ground. They would have been a scrum up where the ball was kicked because the ball, quote unquote, went dead. With the new law trials now, it's deemed to have just basically been brought dead, and he made it dead. So the ball would have been the equivalent of touchdown inside the in goal, meaning it would only be a 22. There's no more an option of a 22 or a scrum up there because he is the one who made it dead. So the situation here is different. It would be counted as a touchdown in goal, 22-meter drop only. So again, all of these it's aligning everything, so this should be the same for all this stuff. It's where the ball is on the plane of the line. No more a player straddling or otherwise. So it's hopefully going to make this simpler for someone like a volunteer mom or dad who's running touch. This is a little bit simpler. Was the ball in or out? That's all you're really looking for. Before the player touched it, was the ball in or out? And that's was the ball in or out of the touch line, in or out of the 22, in or out of the try line? That's a much easier ask of a volunteer touch judge than what we kind of had previously in law. Question from Colin was, so if he had 1 foot in and 1 foot out and had decided to run it out, play on. No, Colin, because he has 1 foot out and he picked up the ball and grabbed it, he's deemed to have brought that ball and made that ball dead. And so the ball would be dead, and you can't let him play it out then, but you would not give him the option. Yes, absolutely. Simpler for ARs and for referees who used to be props and for front row forwards. All the laws have been simplified just for that very reason. All right, folks. Well, we've come to the end here. Hopefully, we answered a few questions for you. First, I'd like to thank Peter Watson for his absolutely amazing detail on the law work. Peter is our national guy who takes care of our laws and is an absolute whiz at this stuff. John Clavin, who's been great with the Refereeing Laws Committee, getting this through all the different committee levels and really pushing this through. Richard Every getting the game management guidelines done. And also then he's going to be training all of our referees on this constantly. And then, of course, new CEO Dan Payne. He's really been a huge supporter of referees and then getting more information out there for teams and for players to learn. So we really appreciate all of their help and their staunch support of referees all the way down the line. I'm actually going to stop the webinar here, but I'm happy to stay on and answer as many questions as you want. So please stick around. We can go back through as many as you'd like. I'll stick around as long as you want, but I'm actually going to stop the overall recording. And so that will get this uploaded for folks to be able to see. I'll get this sent out through social media. It'll be at that same link where I showed you that all the materials were now. It'll be in that same Dropbox with that link. We'll also then send it out probably by email to all the teams and coaches and referees in the country. And so we'll make sure this gets out widespread. We want everybody to know about this. So thanks so much, folks who are going to drop off. Really appreciate your time, and good luck this season. All right, hop back into this.